Welcome to Start Dakota, a show by Startup Sioux Falls where we dispel misconceptions about starting a business, uncover unique challenges faced by founders, highlight today's problem solvers, and build a stronger startup community for tomorrow. This project is powered by the SBA. Now, here's your host, Brienne Maynor.
All right, welcome back to Start Dakota. I am your host, Brienne Maynor with Startup Sioux Falls, and we are here today with my friend, Chris Hintz of Pinnacle Productions, etc., underneath, and we'll dig into the underneath today.
Sounds good.
First of all, in 30 seconds or less, can you give us just a quick intro on you and share a little bit about the Pinnacle Productions business?
Sure. So, obviously, my name is Chris Hintz. I grew up in a small town, Sisseton, graduated from Castlewood. Really always liked entrepreneurship. I had my first job when I was like 12, I think, sweeping a pool hall up in Sisseton. Yeah. But I started Pinnacle Productions in 2002, basically as a method to like go out and be social and make money instead of go out and social and spend money. And I personally love people and love music, so it was like a really great marriage. The Pinnacle Productions story is it's kind of fun. So we're like 20-ish years now in business, so things have changed a lot, but I think the commitment to people and music is still really, really powerful. It's just kind of manifested itself in some different ways from the bridal industry now into like heavily into the event industry and corporate side. So
absolutely. Yeah. You're definitely a success story in this area.
Well, thanks. Medium is fine. Like my shirt
medium
size.
Success story. Yeah. When you started Pinnacle 20 years ago, I'm sure it was some other iteration. What did you call it when it first started?
It was always Pinnacle Productions.
It was always Pinnacle?
Yeah, it was always Pinnacle Productions.
It had a different name.
No, we had like Pinnacle Karaoke and, like the off brands and stuff. But it was more like to identify the pieces. But but it was always Pinnacle. So
did you ever work on the business as you were going about it? Like, where did you sit down and say, who's my customer? All those little nuts and bolts of business planning, any of that? Or was it just kind of
off the cuff,
flying by the seat of your pants?
Well, I think most entrepreneurs are flying by the seat of their pants, even though they'll probably say, no, I had a total business plan. It was all rock solid. But I think a lot of us are just, we find something we really enjoy. Yeah. And then we try to figure a way to monetize it. And a lot of us aren't doing anything that is like trailblazing. It's just, there was tons of other DJs at the time. It was just, how could we be better? Yeah. How could we present a different look or a different flow and make people feel special because they get to go out and celebrate, even though it might be at the small town bar and it's not like a trip for two to Vegas. But there was always this, everyone still needs that escape. Yeah. And so for us, I remember vividly, I was working my old job, Farmer Brothers Coffee. Shout out to all the coffee people out there. But I was in Huron, South Dakota at the Pheasant Inn, the beautiful Pheasant Inn, right? And I'm upstairs in my room and I'm like looking at like projections. Okay, if it was just one person doing one show a weekend and we were at 50% capacity, what would our gross revenue be? And then what if it was two people and then you figure in your labor and some other pieces too, and you're at 50% capacity or 75%, what could it be? So I built it out to like, okay, so if we have 4 systems and 4 people and we're doing 50% occupancy for all of our available dates, like what could we generate for revenue? Got it. And that was like the first time I actually looked at it as a business, but I wasn't doing any client identification. I just knew that there were tons of people already doing karaoke, tons of people already doing DJing. It's like, how could I get in and provide a different feel or a different experience? And that's really all it was. And my old job allowed me the opportunity to meet and greet a ton of different people in the hospitality industry, whether it was the hotel industry, whether it was the bar industry and restaurant. So I already had a lot of the contacts and it was just like another natural progression. Like, hey, Bree, you trust me with, me as a vendor here. Yeah. Would you trust me as like a purveyor independently? Yeah. And that worked out.
How long were you a solopreneur? When did you hire your first employee and who was it?
So,
do you want to talk about it?
I was, well, that's what we're here for. Yeah. So I would say my first employee was technically my ex-wife. So we were married at the time. So we started the business sort of together in 2002 when we got married. But I officially think our like real start date, it was February of 2004, because that was when we had our first official like bar contract, our first official like event. We did some other smaller stuff, volunteer primarily, get the word out, get exposure, die of exposure, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But so in 2004, we started doing that, and my ex-wife was working for another company, and she genuinely like hated her job. Like she didn't really like it. So she ended up taking our first full-time role, I would say, in probably 2004, 2005, somewhere in there, when things started kind of like ramping up. And it allowed her to be able to, be there for the kids, pick up the kids, drop off the kids. But it also allowed us the opportunity to have her take care of all of the bookkeeping, the contracts, some marketing stuff. And back then, this was like pre-Facebook.
Right.
So there wasn't any social media marketing at all. It was just, sending out contracts, sending out posters, that kind of stuff. And I know we sent out posters to all of our events back in the day.
Dates us a little different.
And then it does. And then also like a postcard that said, how was your performer? Anything you'd like to change? Would you like to rebook? Like,
was that back when like the karaoke was on CDs too?
It was still on CDs.
Yep. I bet your rig was just
stupid.
You probably had
and not good stupid, but we were running a 2000, I think it was like a 96 Ford Econoline van.
Yes.
Padded walls, straight from the asylum kind of thing. But all of our gear, fit in there obviously. And it was fun, but it was definitely harder on the back at the time.
Yeah. Oh,
but so my wife was our first full-time employee, and then her brother was our second full-time emploee, and then I quit my full-time job in April. Yes, I kept him in the divorce, actually. So Frank, shout out, love you, brother. But kept him in the divorce. I say that as kind of a joke, but he's like my brother, and he always will be. So he was our second full-time employee, and he was kind of like the nerd. He was the guru who understood signal path and understood a lot of the things that we now know with a lot more, I would say. We're more of an expert now than what we were.
Sure.
But he was like a really good facilitator, fantastic trainer, extremely patient, and just a fun guy in his own way, right? And then I quit my full-time job with Farmer Brothers in tax day, April 15th, 2006.
What made you decide to do it at that point? Was it just a financial decision?
I think for me, it was a combination of factors, and I think for most people it is. For me, the timing was right.
Okay.
The business was able to support 2 full-time employees, and it was able to support a third if I chose to walk away from a really good job. I was getting paid great money, benefits. We had 0 deductible, full family. I mean, it was like amazing.
It's a big
and
deal.
Then also profit sharing and stock options. So it was like a really good job. But I watched like one of my mentors for the company, work for the company for, their math was 85. So if your age plus the years of service equaled 85, you could retire full pension anytime.
Gotcha.
So my friend Wally, who I love and adore, and I miss him greatly. He was, when I first started there, I was like 50, he was like 53 or 54.
Okay.
And so I was there for 4 years up in Fargo, and he retired. And right after he retired, it was like 6 months later, he passed away. Got into a bad car accident and was dead at like 61. Had worked his whole life to, build this. And when he retired, he got like a watch that's probably worth like $30, and had generated millions of dollars and given up countless hours, had multiple, things not work out because jobs are demanding, and they should be. I'm not saying they shouldn't be.
Right.
But my thought is I'm looking at our metrics, I'm looking at our numbers. At this time, I'm still working 55 to 65 hours a week for Farmer Brothers, and I'm working every single weekend, and then a couple nights, at least one night a week. So I was working like about 100 hours a week at the time. And I looked at the numbers. It could support me quitting my job. It was scary. But I called one of my friends in Wadena, Minnesota, and I'm like, what would you do? He said, Chris, you're in sales. You're 33. You're good at sales. You could always go back to sales. Yeah. Even if this doesn't work, it's not going to be like the rest of your life. If it doesn't work, it's just, you got to try. And you're competitive, and you're usually a pretty nice person. Usually. I mean, we all have our moments, of course. But he goes, just try it. Like, the worst that can happen is you fail and you do something else, and you'll be good at that. I mean, you're good at a lot of things. So just try it. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah. And so I got a part-time job at a local card processing company that gave full benefits for 20 hours a week, just to kind of have that insulation. Yeah. I lasted there about like 6 weeks, and I just couldn't deal with the client because, you go from working with people with multi-million-dollar payrolls and, multiple locations to people who can't manage a checkbook. It was just different conversations. Mm-hmm. And not that those people that do that, God bless you. Like sure. The patience that you have and the ability to communicate mm-hmm. under pressure and stress, like God bless you, mm-hmm. was not meant for that.
Right.
So I resigned and went full-time about 2 months later and really haven't looked back.
Yeah.
It's been scary
That's
at
fantastic.
times, but yeah.
So looking ahead to where you are today, I mean, Pinnacle Productions is pretty much the name in the entertainment scene here in Sioux Falls, right? It's true. It's true.
I think we have a good reputation. So
looking back, was there a pivotal moment in those, like halfway through, 3/4 of the way through your career,
sure.
where you had to make some sort of big decision to scale? Or did it just happen gradually over 20 years? Yeah. So tell me about those moments of like big growth.
So for us, our first initial push into the big growth was probably 2006 when I quit my full-time. Then the pressure's on. Mm-hmm. Like, we need this to work. This is both of our incomes. This is taking care of our families. It's paying our bills. Like, so there was I would say, a plateau there that we had to push over. And from a structure standpoint, like most entrepreneurs struggle with structure. Mm-hmm. Not everyone.
Not everyone.
But serial ones do.
Sure.
Because we see the idea, we think we can do something bigger or better or be a disruptor. And then we see the next thing, I could do this. And then the next thing. And I'm no different. But with this, it was like, I would say, when my first marriage kind of fell apart, unfortunately, it happens. But one of the things that my ex-wife said to me that really bothers me to this day is she said, if I was going to call this anything, it'd be a failed business. Oh. And there's nothing that's going to light a fire under me than telling me I can't do something. Like, that's just the way I'm built.
That's the entrepreneurial
I don't like it.
You.
I don't like it.
Right.
Because there's some other ancillary things that happens with that, anxiety and, some of these other pieces. But that was a big pivotal role. When I went through my divorce, it was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. This is something we'd built together, and so that was a difficult time, but it took a little while of soul searching and be like, that marriage didn't define me and it didn't define the business. So then it was like shifting gears, like, how are we going to structure our operations so that if someone were to leave, we're not SOL, I guess. Yeah. And so that was the first pivot. And then the second pivot was probably about 6 years later. We were doing a ton of stuff on the karaoke side, a ton of stuff on the bar side, doing some of the weddings, but not a lot. We didn't have a really big focus on weddings yet. But we started to see like, okay, our return on our investment of time on the karaoke scene and nightlife scene is really, really small. Bars and nightclubs weren't going out of their way to pay you anymore. And they're still not. There's still people that are paying the same amount and charging the same amount as we charged in 2003, which is sad, right? So I think the investment side, we started to see that it was becoming more of a problem. And then also like some of the ancillary things that happen in the nightlife industry that can be degrading to mental health, but also to relationships. And, when you're adding alcohol and, being gone, there's a lot of things that could be negative. Now, people make their own choices, but we started to see like, okay, the bridal industry was something I really enjoyed. Like, I like making people happy. And I know that playing the right music at the right time can really create a charge. And as a DJ, I think one of the best things, and maybe you know this too, but like you play a song and the crowd goes, oh, it's
the best moment, right?
It's the best drug ever. Like,
full
it really is.
Disclosure to those who are listening too, I used to work for Chris. I was one of your KJs, karaoke DJs, and I'm assuming that was back when the business was still with you and your ex.
6 or 7.
I think I came out and I drove out to your house to get my rig. I was terrified, Chris. Like, I just remember those moments, but it was something I wanted to do to grow.
Right.
And supplemental income as well. But there is something to that scene, right? It is, in some ways, it's fun and inspiring, but it can also be really soul-sucking and mentally taxing, where you see people's struggles amplified through alcohol. Or whatever.
Bad decisions, et cetera.
And emotion through singing karaoke songs, right? I feel like I could write a book.
Man, that'd be a good book.
And I'm sure you've seen it all, at weddings as well. Emotions are amplified.
Yep.
The mental health side of this is very interesting to me. Like, how have you coped with that? How do you balance your life when you're kind of a nightlife kind of guy?
Well, used to be. I would say now it's probably less of the nightlife stuff on purpose.
Yeah.
As I've gotten a little bit older and with my second marriage too, like we built a really great team. Yeah. And I think the biggest piece of any scaling process is, trust your team.
Yes.
Hire good people. Yep. Train them well. Communicate as best as you can. Trust me, no one communicates enough. No one does. Every single organization that I've ever talked to, regardless of size or scale, communication is always a problem.
Yeah.
Or perceived communication. Because people communicate differently, and getting, whether it's 3 people on board, well, when you get to the point where you're having 30 full-time employees or 60 employees, like none of those things get less amplified. They just become larger problems. And so from a mental health standpoint, for me, it's just, I've tried my best to be able to separate my personal life and my professional life as much as I possibly can.
Sure.
So when I'm out and about and I'm networking, I'm talking to people, like I'm extroverted and, I want to meet people and have fun. And I genuinely enjoy that part. I think it charges my batteries completely, but there's other parts that drain them completely. And to me, it's like small talk or frivolous, like, oh, how's the weather? Like that, I don't really like, ask Alexa, I guess. She's probably got a better idea. But for me, it's more like those conversations. I'm searching for things that are enriching me as a person or as a leader, or my relationships with my wife or God or whatever those pieces might be.
Yeah.
So I think the balance is a funny word. I don't think it's possible.
It's not.
I don't feel like balance is something. It's a great tagline and it looks good on like a bullet point, but it's not real.
No.
To me, I think 2 things: A, intentionality, and focus. Be intentional with your time. And focus on that. So if you're at work, focus on work. Be intentional about getting things done so that you can go home and you can focus on home and your love and your wife or your pets or your hobbies, and that is a big thing. Go home and focus on those things and be intentional with your time.
Yeah, man.
It's easier said than done, and I still struggle with it, but I think as we get older, we start to maybe not know exactly what we want, but we certainly know what we don't want. And that is enough from a direction standpoint for me to be like, that doesn't suit me anymore.
Right.
Let's go in a different direction.
That's a good note to take a break on. And when we come back, I want to talk to you. You mentioned that you're a serial entrepreneur, and it is definitely true. So he's got a couple other ventures up his sleeve and some different hats that he wears that I can't wait to dig into. So we will be right back.
Hey, this is Amos, the community coordinator at Startup Sioux Falls, and I hope you're enjoying the show. Start Dakota is hosted by Startup Sioux Falls. We provide resources to make starting a business easier, including events, programs, mentorship, ecosystem navigation, and an actual space. If you have ever aspired to launch something of your own or run a business currently, we want you to join our community. Start with Startup Sioux Falls at startupsiouxfalls.com/start. We're excited to connect with you. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. Now let's get back to the show.
Okay, welcome back to Start Dakota. We're here with Chris Hintz, the founder and CEO. Is that the correct title for you, of Pinnacle Productions?
Yeah, it is.
Whatever you want it to be.
I feel like a weird thing to get used to.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Carrying titles, that holds some weight, doesn't it?
I guess.
Yeah. It can.
It's just, you never think of yourself as a CEO. You're like, right. I'm a founder.
Right. You are a founder. At its core, you are a founder. And speaking of that, so we talked about you being a serial entrepreneur.
Sure.
So it was inevitable at some point in your journey that you were going to probably tailor off into another venture.
Sure.
And the one that I'm aware of, and perhaps there are more, is your venture, Helen's Plan.
Yeah.
Where you co-founded with Walter Ports, who is a friend of ours as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that journey, because it's starkly different
100%.
from your Pinnacle journey.
Yeah. So again, I think most of the things that I've been gravitated to are like, how do you help people?
Yeah.
And so Walter's mom and dad, who I knew really well, one of my other part-time gigs is like snow removal. So Walter had asked me to do some snow removal for his family storage units. And I said, sure, I'd love to. And Walter's just that kind of a person. He's like, if I have a friend that can benefit instead of somebody else random, I want my friend to benefit. So I'm very grateful for that part of it. But we've been friends from the industry. He was a incredible bridal photographer. And I think like our community was better because he was part of it. It sucks that he's relocated, but I'm happy for him, super happy for him. But I had done snow removal for his mom and dad, and his dad passed away, and it didn't matter what time I was on the lot, but every time I was in the lot, like cleaning it out, I'd always see his mom, Helen, in the window. It didn't matter if it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. She'd always wave at me. And if she was awake and I was shoveling her walk, she'd always like, hey, do you want a cup of coffee or some hot chocolate? Like, she's a grandma. She's just like the most beautiful grandma. And we got to know each other a little bit, through the process. And unfortunately, we lost her kind of suddenly. And so in 2020, when things were crazy and I had a little more time, a lot more anxiety, but a little more time in the event industry, Walter had reached out to me and he was driving back from Minneapolis, and he says, why do we deal with the death like it's the 1950s? And if you know Walter, like, he's very cerebral. He likes to have really deep conversations, which is why I genuinely gravitate towards him. I love that person. And we don't agree on a lot of things, but we have mutual respect for one another to hear each other out, understand where the other is coming from. We're not going to convince each other that I'm right and you're wrong, but we just enjoy the dialogue part of it. So this was another thought that I'm like, oh, here we go. It's going to be a 3-hour conversation with Walter on the phone.
Gosh, I know that so well. Sorry, Walter, we're dogging on you right now.
No, I love him. I do. He is definitely a brother, a kindred spirit. I genuinely have so much love for him and so much respect.
You guys both wear your hearts on your sleeve. So
yeah,
you do.
I think that's
where
to our, it's not a detriment for sure. But so he started talking, and just like that, I could see myself in his shoes. He'd lost his dad, had this beautiful grieving experience because his mom was there to handle all the things. And then when his mom passed away, he was a partner in the business part of it. And the physical and mental stress of having to deal with all of the things that need to happen in order to close an estate, or having these multiple tentacles into different, ventures that you're a part of. And watching him for the year after she passed away, like dealing with the business pieces of her passing and not the grief that we all feel. He just didn't have time to grieve. And it hit him like a ton of bricks. He wrote a check out a year from the date she passed away, and he like broke down crying in the courthouse because he's paying his taxes on their land that they had in some of their other entities. So we have this really cool conversation. He's like, I want to figure out a way to create this online, very secure database that will help others when these things happen. And my mom and dad are at this time, in their early 70s and have just transitioned from their home. They sold their home. They moved to an apartment in Hartford to be kind of closer to the family, but also to get rid of some of the responsibilities of caring for a home. And he's like, so what do you think this is worth? And I said, well, what are you thinking? And he's like, well, if we could put everything in one place, create these checklists, it would at least alleviate some of the things that we're looking for. So Walter's a nerd, like through and through. Like if something's in his brain, he is going to follow that rabbit hole and find out all of the things. And he did. And he found some stats that were like really incredible. It's like for most simple estates, it's like something like 680 hours worth of work for a simple estate, not a corporation, not LLCs, not trusts or any of those pieces. It was like 680 hours. And half of that time is spent researching what to do. So if he could create something that would alleviate the pain that he felt, then he could help other people. And that, again, comes back to one of my core values. Like, I like helping people. I'm not always helping people, don't get me wrong, but I genuinely get my batteries charged from helping other people through things. And my grandfather used to say, we're all here for one thing. We're all here to see each other through, not to see through each other. And those are two very important delineations. So for me, this was like, this could be something that would help me. My parents aren't independently wealthy, and they never have been and never will be. And that's totally okay. They're fantastic people. But when they pass, like currently, we have asked to, hey, where are your affairs? How can we help? Because
that's a difficult question to broach too, right? Nobody wants to talk about that.
I would say it's a difficult one to approach, but it's not as difficult as, Mom, we have to take away your keys. You're not fit to drive anymore. That's a difficult conversation.
Right.
But we all have this inevitability that all of us have a passing date, and some of it's way too soon. And like with local things, like in the last few weeks, I mean, we've lost some incredible members of our community, you know, Hugh Weber being one of them, you know, and Katie. So it's just,
you never know.
You don't. So me as I don't want to say, I don't know if I would be the executor or anything, but if I was put in that position, for me to have this roadmap that would help Mom and Dad so that we don't have this fight or these, well, Dad said this, no, Dad said this, well, Dad told me this. Well, if we have this one place where all of this data it's kept and it's very clear, it's very transparent, to me, how does that help the family that's surviving, trying to pick up these pieces? And when you have someone like in our family, my father, the patriarch, is always taking care of the bills, and my mom, as the matriarch, doesn't really, she just like raised the kids and, you know, worked a job, and she didn't really worry about the bills. But if my dad were to pass first, like my mom would be lost, and we have no roadmap. So, what would I pay for that? Well, I would pay a lot of money for that.
This sounds like a no-brainer, right? Like, so did you just have like an immediate, exciting response to this product when you rolled it out?
No, not immediately. Okay. For me, it's like, God, I don't like talking about death.
Right.
Because what we do is we talk about life and creating vibrant moments and all of this energy and being around for these milestones that are all positive.
Exactly.
And now it's like, you're going to die someday and here's what you need to do.
What song do you play then, Chris?
Well, I mean, Moon River, you know, I don't know. But the point is I was immediately energized because I can see this being something that every single person needs. Now, whether they justify it the same way, and there's, you know, fantastic feedback on both sides. Well, I could just do this with a Google Doc. You can, but is everyone able to?
Right.
And that's where, how do we create something user-friendly that, you know, creates this advocacy for families and creates a legacy that, you know, when we pass, we have this beautiful roadmap and we've let all of our wishes be known and it's all transparent. And here you go. This is my last gift to you. Right.
So talk about the scalability of this product and how you got from 2020 as an idea. What resources did you use along the way to get to where you are now with the product?
So I would say in the 20 years I've been in Sioux Falls, I probably leveraged every relationship I had, asking questions, talking about financial viability, asking for other connections. In the will and trust world, also in the end of life world. We've talked with Beth, who's a doula, end of life doula. And we've talked to funeral home directors, and I mean, every resource I could possibly think of, we have explored. Enough, I don't know, but I think from our perspective, it's like we were very diligent in asking the right questions, setting up focus groups. And I think every entrepreneur thinks they're doing the best they can. And I feel like we did the same, but that doesn't mean that there aren't pieces sometimes that are just like beyond your grasp.
Absolutely. So this kind of transitions into co-starters.
Sure.
And you've seen it from both sides now. And I had to chuckle when you applied. So I'm like, Chris Hintz is applying to go through co-starters. The guy has been in business for 20 years. What business does he have or need from this? Like, that was my first inclination, right? So tell me about your experience with the Co-Starters Accelerator program and what you gleaned in those 10 weeks.
Well, most entrepreneurs, I found out, because I do talk with a lot of them, they have some level of imposter syndrome. So I think that's a real thing no matter what. And are you successful because of you or in spite of you? And I think that's a real game that a lot of us play. So for me, when Walter told me about this program, I was instantly intrigued because you don't know what you don't know. And that's just life. So, and one vertical and another vertical are completely separated. So I think sometimes when you have mild success in one area, you think you have the Midas touch and you have it all figured out. Well, you don't. No one does. And when you go into a completely separate vertical, if you don't go through the same like checks and balances and due diligence that you had in your first endeavor, this one's going to fail because you can't use your past success as like any kind of form, or it's not indicative of your future successes. It sounds like a securities thing. All securities are backed by the, but realistically, when I applied, it was like, this is going to be great. And then I found out Eric was our facilitator, and I'm like, oh, this is even better, because I love Eric and his sister and their whole family. Like, they're just fantastic people. And so I'm like, well, if Eric's the facilitator, it's going to give me some opportunities to have some deeper conversations if need be. But then you start seeing like Corey Poole and like all of these people that I know from the city. It's just like, it just allowed a different level of connection, but it also allowed me to maybe give some insight to other people in the cohort too. That's like, you're not that far off, and this might be a different way to think about it. And I loved that about the cohort. Yeah. There was just this genuine community. We're all in there cheerleading for each other. And
you guys were the first cohort, right?
I don't think we were the first, but I know we were the first online one.
You were because
we were all online.
Cohort.
Oh, we were.
Yes, you were.
Oh, wow, that's great. I didn't know that we were inaugural.
Class.
Oh, wow.
So you set the bar high.
Another pin.
So speaking of pin, I'm going to put a pin in it for a second.
Sure.
And when we come back, I want to talk about your transition from being in a cohort to facilitating a cohort.
Wonderful.
So we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Business Minute, a recurring segment powered by the SBA, where we'll share business facts and resources available to entrepreneurs throughout the U.S. Small Business Administration. This is Sadie Sweer, Executive Director of SD CEO East Women's Business Center. Did you know, despite losing 9.1 million jobs in the first 2 quarters of 2020, small business growth rebounded swiftly following the COVID-19 recession? In the 4 quarters following, small businesses have gained 5.5 million jobs, making up for 60% of the decline during the early pandemic. Small businesses have generated 12.9 million net new jobs over the past 25 years, accounting for 2 out of every 3 jobs added to the economy. Interested in starting a business or already own one? There are many free resources available. One of those resources is the South Dakota Small Business Development Center, a University of South Dakota Beacom School of Business outreach program. The SDSBDC serves small businesses in the state of South Dakota by assisting with business planning, operational improvement, and product or market development. The SDSBDC provides one-on-one, confidential, no-cost business advising on a statewide basis with offices in Aberdeen, Pierre, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Watertown, and Yankton. Learn more about SDSBDC at sdbusinesshelp.com.
And we're back. Welcome back to Start Dakota. We are here with Chris Hintz, serial entrepreneur, co-founder of Helen's Plan, and also founder, and we're just going to call you CEO of Pinnacle Productions. There's another hat that you wear in addition to this, and we were just talking about the power of community within the cohort that you experienced with co-starters.
Yep.
And I have to imagine that was what maybe propelled you to think about being a facilitator yourself. And so now here we are 3 years later, and you are facilitating our current co-starters cohort.
Yep.
Talk to me about that experience on the flip side.
Sure. I would say on the flip side of things, when we went through 2020 with Helen's Plan, it was just such a warmth. That it was such a beautiful time of like trying to identify our issues and our problems. And I loved it. I really, really did. But I think I loved it just as much as seeing the other cohorters and like having those one-on-ones and like, have you thought of approaching it this way? Or maybe your messaging is a little unclear because you're too close to it. And
can you give me a success story of a relationship you built within that cohort?
Oh man, there's a lot of them actually. I think from a success standpoint, I judge success as like, have I been able to help this person? Have I been able to create some connections with them? And I would say yes with most of my co-starters that were in that group. But now it's like we see each other and it's just like, hey, what's up? And you're part of this like I want to say fraternity, but it's not meant to be like fraternity, sorority, whatever you want. It's like this Greek culture where it's like we went through the same things together. We were in the trenches and helping people out. But I think I can't like name one specific thing, but just having those conversations in some of those breakout rooms, because again, all stuff was online. So we're having these breakout room conversations, and you see these people, you know, reaching out to your connections, and they have these great dialogue and, oh, thank you for introducing me to so-and-so. Like, we're going to do some stuff together and talk. And I loved that. I like the connector, right? The go-giver. If you've ever read the book, like, I'm the connector. I love connecting people. You? So when Sarah reached out and was like, hey, would you consider being a facilitator? And I thought, oh, geez, again, imposter syndrome. Like, how can I be as good as Eric? Because there's zero way I can be as good as Eric, but I can be a really good Chris. And I can bring a lot of the things that I've learned from the table and helping people through my co-starters. And then, you know, on the side, you know, I mentor a few other people, and I really enjoy that part. I don't really talk about that because that's for them, not for me to brag about, because it's not a braggadocious thing. It's like, we're here to help people. I'm just doing that. Don't need everyone tagging me. Oh, Chris is me. I don't care about that. I just want to help people, right? So when Sarah asked about it, I'm like, I would love that. I genuinely think I would love that. I like coaching people. I like helping people find the problems. I also really enjoy watching people, you know, go with full gusto, realize their true potential, you know, watch them fail, pick themselves up and go again. I love that. Like, it's so enjoyable for me to see. So when she asked, I was, yes, how? And do I have the time? Yeah. Because we're all overcommitted.
Real thing.
It is. Yep. So, but I'm very grateful that I've been able to be a facilitator. I hope that the people in my cohort feel the same way about me as I felt about Eric. But at the end of the day, I just want them to know that I'm doing the best I can with the resources that I have, and my resources are now yours. So,
and I think what we identified in you was the fact that you not only have that teachable mindset, you're able to go in and articulate in a certain way, but you've been through it. And that's really what it takes, in my mind, to be an effective facilitator, like taking yourself out of it.
Right.
And just being there for those, like, mostly you're there to give them space, right? To express themselves and talk and be vulnerable and really get to the heart of what their problem is that they're trying to solve.
Yep.
I'd have to imagine, and because I always come to the very first class, it's always the most intimidating because you don't know what the personalities in the room are going to be like and how they're going to mix and how you are going to be effective in that room. So what was that first class, that first cohort session like for you? Were you scared? Were you excited?
Oh, I think there's anticipation, some scaredness, but also it's like, again, it's like, am I going to be able to give these people what they need?
Yeah.
Because it's a responsibility.
Yep.
And when I sat down in the room, like, okay, you can do this, you can do this. And I don't think you need a lot of pep talk, but it is literally like, who are these people?
Yeah.
How are the dynamics? I feel like that's a massive thing. And then how do you manage the different personalities / ego / because we all have them, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But how do we, you know, break down the false bravado and say it's okay not to know it.
Right.
It's okay to say I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's what I think.
Yep.
I'd much rather have that than like, I have all of the answers. I know exactly that customers won't pay for this because I wouldn't. Well, that's a limiting factor and we have to get through that, you know?
Yep.
So I think for me, when I sat there, yes, there was some anticipation, some anxiety, but at the end of the day, it's like, if we can get through this first week, we can get through this, you know, easily. And, you know, we're going to learn from each other, just set ground rules and be respectful of others' time. We're not here to dominate conversations. We're here to contribute dialogue and figure out the problems.
Right.
That's really, I feel like I'm just the conductor trying to keep the train on the track and everybody else has to follow along.
Yeah.
And it's been enjoyable.
Are you week 6?
We just finished 7. Just finished 7.
You're getting towards the tail end.
We're heavy in the math.
How do you think it's going? Like, what have you observed over these 7 weeks, and what has been the most surprising find throughout the 7 weeks for you?
That's a good story. Surprising find. Let's start with that. I think knowing some of the people in the cohort, and I am lucky that I know some of the people in the cohort.
Sioux Falls, right? You're gonna know people.
That's true. 2 degrees of separation.
Right.
But learning, you know, a couple of the people that I know exceptionally well, like what they want to do and how they want to not necessarily exit, but operate their business, it was completely different than what I thought it would be. And it's really neat.
Yeah.
I'm really cool. That's a really cool thing for me because I have my preconceived ideas, and knowing people and having relationships with people to watch them do something like completely inaudible. I love it.
Yeah.
The challenges, I would say, just getting people committed to the homework part, because it is very important. The homework is everything. And I remember the week one, I'm like, this is just like basketball, right? So it's Michael Jordan, and he didn't get good because he just put on his shoes, right? He got good after getting cut, after failing as a junior, comes back as a senior, makes the team. But the stuff that he did off the court, like the practice and stuff that he did before the games or between the games, that's what made him great at game time.
Right.
So if you're not willing to put in the work outside of the cohort during this 3-hour, very limited session, if you can't give it another 3 hours during the week, how are you going to work on this business plan? I mean, how are you going to execute this? And it's not me saying you have to. This is saying if this is truly a priority, you need to be able to set aside that time and let some of this other stuff go. And then figure out a way to work on this business model to make sure that this is worthy of your time. Because like you had said, time is extremely valuable. We don't have more time. We can't print more time. We can't make more time. It's just, it is what it is. If you're going to commit this, take this away from your family, take these away from your friends. You know, you want that time to be fruitful. So put the time in, figure it out, and then move on. Get to the yes or the no, but don't be stuck in the middle. Get through it.
That's such good advice.
So
something that we are trying to aspire to be as a city and as a community is a city of innovation in which we are supporting fertile ground for innovation and entrepreneurship. And I think there are different opinions and definitions about what that means for the city.
Sure.
We, on one token, it's the scalable, the high growth, the tech-based, you know, your traditional entrepreneur that you would think of, that the Bill Gates, you know, that we're aspiring to be. But then we've also got all of these non-traditional businesses, or traditional, however you want to slice it, the Main Street businesses, the retailers, restaurateurs, yoga studios, daycares. And I feel like we've mixed all of them together. And we're serving a very wide net of individuals currently. What do you think the pros and cons of that are? And what would you like to see happen to move the startup community forward?
Wow.
Sorry, big one.
That is big.
I need some answers. I need help here.
So I would say the harder part, let's go with the challenges first, because I like ending on positives. So the challenges, I think, are the opportunities to be awesome in the program, is that not everyone has the same skill set. So when people are walking in, some have PhDs in finance, so they understand that segment exceptionally well, but then they struggle on like the sales or identifying a common unit of sale. Like there's a lot of things that they walk in, and some have extremely high knowledge in one areas and others don't. So getting to a baseline with some of that is complicated. I do think some of that could be complicated. So I think if I were to give any advice based on how we would, I don't want to say separate, because I don't think that that's a good idea to separate per se, but from a focus standpoint, like where are you in the process? Is this an idea? Is this a business that's currently running and you're trying to figure out how to scale it, or how to be maybe running it more efficiently and more lean? I think that could be super helpful, but I know that there's also possibilities where different modules would have, like I look at a module idea. So like when you're out of co-starters, you've gone through all of these things to pre-qualify that you're serious about this, that you're growing this, but then maybe to have an add-on module for like accounting and working on our shortcomings, or figuring a way to pass this off so that we can focus on the things that we truly are great at and help push that vertical. And on the positive, that would be it, you know, part of that collaborative nature of the conversations, but then also like the connectivity between the cohort. So there are multiple conversations that have happened. Last night was a perfect example where like, I'd really like an introduction to this person. Like, you know, here's Quinn. We're working on a project together for co-starters. She would love an introduction, or they would love an introduction to discuss this product or service. Is this something that we can do? And by utilizing the power of Startup Sioux Falls and the co-starters and some of the other relationships that we naturally bring into the conversation, it opens these doors. And to me, that's the most powerful thing that we do. Because whether you're an Amazon who's going to employ 500,000 people or a mom and pop restaurant that's going to serve 1,000 people 50 at a time, right? We need all of this to thrive. Our community needs all of these pieces. You can bring in this workforce, but if you don't give them culture, if you don't give them opportunities for entertainment, if you don't do things to help elevate the lifestyle in Sioux Falls, they will seek that elsewhere. And I want to be able to tell people and evangelize people what a great startup community that we have in Sioux Falls, but also all of the people here, they want you to succeed. The mayor's mission about mentors and mentees is massive. And I wish that more people would reach out and ask those people. Most of us who are mentors, we love that mentee process, and we are gaining just as much from these conversations as not. But we want to be able to help break down the walls that were there for us, whether they were real or make-believe. There are always these walls and these limiting factors. I truly feel like Co-Starters is allowing us to have this dialogue and these conversations to help alleviate some of that and shorten that pathway, because our businesses deserve to succeed. The people that are taking these risks, they deserve to have real information and make the decisions that are best for them and their business with as much information as possible. So I think the more that we give, the more that we freely share, the better our whole part of the world is.
Reach it. Here's Chris Hintz taking us to church. Appreciate your time. I appreciate your passion.
Thank you.
We're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, I want to have a little fun with you.
Sounds good.
So we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jeff Hayward with Startup Sioux Falls. Welcome back to the Co-Starters Challenge, a recurring segment where we'll provide some tips for launching or growing your startup, as well as an action you can take called fieldwork. As you prepare for and launch your startup, it's easy to get blinders on and be hyper-focused on the tasks in front of you. But don't forget to take the time to zoom out and get a high-level view of your business. You've got to know where you're going, have a long-term vision, and establish milestones to get there. And so we're getting right into our fieldwork this month. We're going to start small. Take a moment to think about what are the most important things you need to do in the next 3 months to stay on track. I'm talking about the big stuff, not small tasks. Do you need to land an investor? Maybe create a prototype. Get the word out and have a successful launch day? Whatever it is, get it down on paper. That's step 1. Now, we work backwards to establish a 60-day and 30-day milestones. List out 4 or 5 tasks that need to be accomplished to meet each of those milestones. Once you've got this on paper, come back a day later and see if anything else has come to mind. Now you've got a plan with actionable steps to help you keep traction and move your business forward. That's all for this episode. Good luck on your startup.
Okay, we're back with Chris Hintz, CEO and founder of Pinnacle. Just an amazing human being all around. And we were just talking in the break about the impact that you've had. And I know that you're a humble guy, but you've truly made a difference in this community. And I thank you for that. I'm blessed to know you. So
that's very nice.
This has been really fun. And I want to end on a fun note here.
Sure.
So just getting to know Chris Hintz a little bit better, we're going to do a little lightning round.
Okay.
So first question, Google Workspace or Outlook?
Google Workspace for sure.
Yeah, my guy. Coffee or tea?
Coffee, but I'm learning to like tea.
Oh,
but I was a coffee salesman, so coffee. Give me a good Americano. That's how I'm going to judge your coffee. Don't give me cream and sugar.
Anxiety inducing, right? Too.
It can be.
I need to temper it with some tea.
Yep. I think London fog sounds good too sometimes.
That also means we're old. Older.
Yeah.
Seasoned.
Yep.
Hoodie or blazer?
To be honest, it's really half and half. Obviously, I'm wearing a hoodie today, but I actually enjoy a blazer.
What would be a really cool reveal is if half of your hoodie was a blazer.
Oh, that'd be
turned and
sounds like a fashion
business
idea.
On one side.
Is this a business idea? Yeah, exactly. It's like the mullet.
It's the mullet.
Yeah.
WhatsApp or Facebook?
Facebook.
Yeah, me too. It's a powerful platform.
Yeah.
Yep. Mom book. Summer or winter?
Definitely summer. I have a lake home. Yeah. Love the lake. Love the boat. Love the dogs, and I love the boat. Yeah. summer for sure.
Pretty much everything but winter for me.
Yes. Right? Yes. We have basically 3 weeks of summer and 49 weeks of winter-ish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Salty food or sweet food?
Both. I can't choose. Okay. That's like. Do
you have a favorite snack then? Like, what's the perfect salty sweet snack?
Salty sweet. I would say like chips and queso. Like love chips and queso. Okay. Love that kind of stuff. Yeah. For a snack or popcorn. Like Smart Foods white cheddar popcorn. It's pretty great. Yeah.
And then I have to ask, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Ooh. Go-to karaoke song. There's a few. Gone, I think, Montgomery Gentry.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'd ask you to sing it, but
because it starts out living like a freight train, then it gets into this really high like falsetto. Gone like a wind. Yeah, I love that song. It's great. So it just starts out very simple, and then it like gets into this like power notes. And...
Is there a favorite karaoke bar of yours that, as you as a customer, like to went back in the day?
So I used to love going to the Gold Rush when we did the karaoke there. Not because of, it was us doing it, but part of it was like the people that you see, they would come out all the time and you have your regulars, and it was just fun. And when the Gold Rush was tiny, like when it was just that little tiny little thing, and like they moved out the pool table and it was like, a third of what it is now. Mm-hmm. I loved those times. Like those were so much fun. It was just like gritty and grimy and beer was super cheap. But I think my favorite karaoke memories from all time though, Champs Americana. Like, man, Champs was so great. It was Sunday night. It was Sinistry night. Everyone from the bar industry would come down. We would have people just like the best singers in town come because it was the only game in town. Yeah. It was just fantastic. Like those were my favorite memories. But I think the smaller stuff like at the Gold Rush was really, really fun too.
I feel like a reunion is on the horizon.
I've actually talked to Geiken about that at PAVE, about doing like a Champs karaoke night reunion, like a Sunday night at the PAVE.
Sign me
because up. They have all the sound system in there and the videos and stuff. And John had talked about how maybe we could bring back like all of the specials that they had, like the $2 taps and like the cheese sticks and all the half price appetizers and stuff.
You had me at cheese sticks.
And marinara, baby.
Chris.
Or ranch. So
you are a delight.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for all that you do for this community. And I don't know what the next 20 years brings for you in Pinnacle, but I have to imagine that you guys are on your way to the moon. So
thank you.
I'm excited to be a small part of the journey. And anyone who's listening, if you're interested in learning more about Chris or his business or his connections, he's a good guy. He'll probably take your call. So just let us know. And thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
See you at the karaoke reunion.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for Start Dakota. Visit our website at startupsiouxfalls.com to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend to rate our show on iTunes. If you are a founder and aspiring entrepreneur, you can get started by visiting our website at startupsiouxfalls.com/start. Start Dakota is made possible by funding from the U.S. Small Business Administration. With this funding, Startup Sioux Falls is piloting an expanded version of its Co-Starters Business Accelerator program and providing additional resources to support underserved founders. Start with Startup Sioux Falls.